Hi folks, welcome back to Heather's Mixed Media Studio. Today in the studio I want to revisit this little piece of art that I did here. In the tutorial that I was watching, Andrea Nelson Art, she had put little houses and 3 little hills. So there were 3 houses and 3 hills. And I decided I was going to do them as hobbit holes. And I think there were some design flaws with that, so I'm going to change my drawing a bit. But the part that I found disappointing in my results versus her results is that you can see that there's a definite difference in tone between the door and this yellow hill, but the tone almost disappears here. This orange and that yellow are so close together. There's very little tonal change here. And so mine looks very muted and dull in a way where hers really popped and had a lot of vibrancy. Now, it's possible that she has better paint than I do. In fact, it's likely that she has better paint than I have. It's possible that I did this on, in fact, it's certain that I did this on cold press paper where I usually use I thought I usually used a hot press paper, apparently not. My favorite paper is this one here. This is a cold press water paper as well. So I'm going to work in this book today. Not even book. I'm going to take the piece of paper out and I'm going to tape it to the desk. So I'm going to be working on a slightly larger scale. I didn't realize that was cold press paper also. But they are 2 different brands. This one didn't really have a brand name on it. This one is Canson Graduate. I pick it up at Walmart. I enjoy how the Canson paper works. I've used it before. So I want to get out some washi tape. I don't tend to keep a lot of washi tape around, but I do have some. And tape off a border around the outer edge. Not because I necessarily need a border, but because I want it to stick to the desk. And that way I have fewer problems with it. And that's my hope anyway. And it'll stay in frame for you because I currently have some problems with making sure everything's in frame. So yeah, there's been a lot of stuff going on in the studio. I am feeling much better than the last time I posted a video. So that is an improvement. I no longer feel quite as ill as I did the last time I filmed. Things at my work have gotten less stressful this week, so that's a nice change of pace as well. Let's see. At another point, I will show you the painted papers that got made last night. I find that sometimes I want to film because I want to talk at the camera and explain what I'm doing and the decisions I'm making. And then there are other times where I'm just like, no, I don't have time for that. But it's not that I don't want to share my process with you. It's that sometimes I just need to decompress and not be thinking about what I'm going to say next or what the audience is going to think. And I'm not great at reading comments. And right now I have what should I say? A thriving audience of 4. So thank all 4 of you for being here. I do think there are other people who watch the video, but they've elected not to subscribe, and that's fine. I hope someday they change their mind, but right now, totally fine with it. I do want to keep my reference sheet out here so that I know what I'm doing. I need to pull out a colored pencil because that's how Andrea started her tutorial, was with a small drawing. I think I put the pen back the pencil back that I used. So these are not necessarily high quality colored pencils here. This is a set that my mom and I picked up from Costco ages ago. The company is called U Brands, and I don't know that they're anything to write home about. They have weird names on them, like Blue Jeans and Purple Heart, and one of them's called Grapeful, and You Make Me Blush is one of their pink colors. They have there are several things I enjoy about this set. One of them is this gray-brown color called Rocky Mountain. I haven't really seen that represented in art or colored pencils anywhere else. But for purposes of today's drawing, anyway, I think I want to go with a green, because I am still going to draw this as a series of hobbit houses, but I want them to... use green so that they'll look more woodsy and outdoorsy. I suppose I could use brown also. That's a good point. I think this is going to be the right size for drawing the little hobbit doors. I think that'll work out all right. Let me look at a brown instead. I think a brown might actually be a better door framing color for this project. And now not every crayon in this bag, colored pencil in this bag, I apologize. Some of them are straight up Crayola. There's a charcoal pencil in here. Redwood's not bad. I've worked with that before. Yeah, that's a decent brown. I like redwood. Nuts About You is a good brown if I'm looking for something lighter. I don't think I want that this time around. I think I do want the redwood. There's one other brown. Not the dark chocolate, tends to be too brown. Yeah, not a fan of that. Like I said, they all have unusual names. Must Be Rusty, that's a good one. That one tends to come out red, though, which I might want. Yeah, I think it's going to be redwood today. Give me just a moment. I will pull over the test swatch that I just did here on the cold press. I know it was off camera for you. So this top one is redwood, and I think that came out really nice for hobbit holes. Nuts About You is good if I want something with a little bit more yellow to it. The dark chocolate is this one here. It almost comes out black. And then the Must Be Rusty has a really nice clay red kind of look to it. So it's definitely going to be between the redwood and the Must Be Rusty. I think for this purpose, I'm going to go with the redwood. Yeah, because I think there's too much red in the Must Be Rusty for the project that I'm working on. So we're going to go with redwood. I'm going to need to sharpen that because all of my tips are pretty dull from the last couple things I've been coloring. And I think that's going to work out better than green. So I might keep the green out for some of the door details, though. So we'll keep that out just in case. All right. So anyway, having figured out that we're going to do the sketch in brown, I need to get my first house down. And I do want to draw it kind of low on the picture, but not so low that I can't draw steps in front of it. So there's my first hobbit hole. Now, the thing that I did wrong last time on the hobbit hole is that hobbit doors don't jut up over landscapes the way that a house would jut up over the landscape. They're a part of the landscape. So what I want to do is draw this hill so that it comes to just about here on this door frame. But I do still want it to be hill-shaped. So we're going to do kind of this thing with it, which is not a lot of a hill, but it's enough of a hill. Now, this house door can be kind of hidden behind the hill in front of it, because I think we're going to want that to show that this landscape undulates, where with a more straight house, you would probably do that as well. I think I saw Andrea do that in her tutorial. And now the same thing with this one. I'm going to want the landscape to come down low here, but have a nice hill otherwise. So we're going to do a swoop here, come down here, and then bring it back up that way. And then I need to draw one final house. It's going to be here. I think I might have gone with too big of a house shape, but oh well. a lot of this is to just try and undo the mistakes from the last one, which had much more to do with the saturation of the paint than it had to do with my hobbit houses. So here we're going to start here. We're going to swoop down low here, and then I think I'll just continue that swoop down. Maybe you wouldn't draw your hobbit houses this way. Probably you wouldn't draw 3 hobbit houses on a hill anyway. It's fine. I'm just trying to reclaim this piece of art, which had definite problems. So now the next thing I need to do is find somewhere for my reference photo to sit so it quits getting in my way. Now she did this with only 4 colors. Now I'll put it off to the side. And the 4 colors that she used were yellow, pink, purple, and blue. So I have those still in my palette from the first time I did this. And you do yellow on the whole, you'll see. I'd rather just show you than try and explain it. So first I want to get my rinse my brushes water out here. All of my cups are in the other room, so these are going to have to do kind of improvising today because I wasn't as prepared as I probably should have been. I'm going to need a good brush. Now, all of my brushes are kind of a tragedy because I am not kind to my brushes. And of course, the big one that I want is currently really stiff. Because I use all my brushes for acrylic, I use them for glue, I use them for, dusting things off. I don't treat them well. I do need to go out and invest in some good watercolor brushes because I'm aware that I treat all of my brushes kind of poorly. So let's get this one a little wet and get it working functionally like a brush. Yeah, don't do as I do. Actually, treat your brushes kindly if you're going to do watercolor, and maybe have a dedicated set of watercolor brushes. I will have that at some point. That's just not what I have today. I also have my spray bottle of watercolors so that I can activate all of my paints. We're going to try and reactivate the ones that are in the pan. But I am going to change up some of these colors. I want to use that set of yellow blue. I'm going to use that pink. I do have my swatch card here. So the main pink that I have is this one here. It's Permanent Rose. Everything else I have is actually red. So we're going to use the Permanent Rose again for the pink. I don't remember which blue this is, but I think I'm going to go with Ultramarine, which is this one here. For the purple, I only really have one purple in here. It's Dioxazine Violet, so we're going to use that. And then for the yellow, I think I did lemon yellow last time. I'm going to pop that up to the cadmium yellow hue and see if that does better, because this was not dark enough. I might do cadmium pale yellow, but we're definitely going to switch up a couple of the colors because I did not get the saturation I needed last time. So anyway, yes, let's get the purple activated. We'll get that blue activated. We already activated the rose, and we're going to activate this yellow here. So what I believe I want to do here, is we're working with the yellow, is I want to get a nice puddle of a good amount of yellow going on right here. Because it is going to take this whole page and it's going to do it twice. So I think part of my problem last time was that I didn't have enough of any given color, and it was more water than it was color. So I'm trying to make sure I pick up enough paint this time so that I get a good saturation on the page. Now, I don't know, I'm not used to working at this larger scale, so I don't know if I have enough yellow on the page. But with this very first coat, all you do is paint the whole thing yellow. So that's what we're going to do here, is paint the entire page yellow. The reason you use colored pencils on the first layer, from what I understand, is that colored pencils are not water soluble, and so they're just going to stay on the page. See, I didn't mix up enough of this color, so I'm going to need more of it, which is fine. I will make more of it, but I need to do it quick because I want this to only be one layer of this color, because I'm going to go back in and do a second layer later. So there we go. All right, and then we're gonna let it dry or make it dry. In my case, I'm gonna make it dry because my partner's not home and I won't wake him up using the hairdryer. And it's not my gel plate, so I don't have to worry about throwing heat at it. I will turn the sound off and speed this up so you don't have to watch paint dry. Right, now that that's dry, I want to mix up another good puddle of that same yellow. Because here again, I need to cover almost the entire page with this color here. And again, I need to make sure I have enough of it, which was clearly a problem last time, where I did not have enough of it. But I also want it to be saturated enough with the color that when I go over it a second time, I get a significant color shift. And I don't work with watercolors enough, and definitely not at this scale, to have a good sense of when I have enough saturation and when I don't. But, you know, that's how you get better. You just keep practicing with the thing and see how it goes. So for this second layer, you don't paint the first door, but you paint the whole rest of it. So we're going to do that. Now, she did say you could work in this with a smaller brush, but I'm impatient and I don't want to. So I might be working outside my skill level here. It would help if I had the water out of my way. All right. But that's okay. Goal here is just to get this same level of yellow all the way up the page. And it's crazy wet right now, but that's what a hairdryer is for, in my opinion. So yeah, there's some blobs here that I kind of wish weren't there, but at the same time, you know, what are you going to do? So we're going to rinse that brush out because I'm not going to need yellow anymore. We're going to be moving on to the next color. Crikey. That was just the hairdryer falling. Nothing to be concerned about. But I do want to absorb some of the excess wet off of the washi tape. I cut this big old sponge up the other day to use with my acrylic paints, and it's coming in really handy right now to dry off the washi tape. All right, again with the hairdryer, and then we'll move on to the next color. I think some of these hairs I'm getting might be my brush falling apart, because again, it's not a high quality brush. Probably bought it at Walmart. I think that was pencil that's in the wrong spot. All right, probably I could use a little less water on the next couple of layers, But that's our first 2 layers. We've done 1 layer here on the door, 2 layers on this hill, and now we're going to switch colors. And this is where things went horribly awry last time. My next color should be pink. So I need to make sure I get enough pink built so that I can at least do the first layer, hopefully the second layer as well. Let's make sure that rose is ready to go. No, don't do that. I got a little bit of water on here that I don't want on here. Okay, anyway, so let's get this rose going. We're going to try and use what's already there, try and get that moving in off the plate. But I want to really saturate this rose because the last time there was just not nearly enough of it, and I got this odd... No, I take that back. It was the purple that was a real fail. Anyway, somewhere between the rose and the purple, there just wasn't enough of it. Now, I will put a link to Andrea Nelson's piece so that you can see what it should look like. Because, yeah, I have clearly struggled with it at least once, and I'm hoping that this second one comes out a little better. So trying to make sure I get good saturation with that rose. Just pick up some more of that paint here. Trying to make sure I only pick up the rose and not the color adjacent to it. Alright, in theory, that should be a good saturation of rose there. So now we're going to skip this door, we're going to skip this hill. But we're going to paint everything else. I have to think about it for a minute. Alright, so here we go. So wet. See, and I don't feel like that is saturated enough. I mean, it's wet enough. I just don't think I have enough rose in my paint. Put a nice water barrier down there. See, I don't want to leave puddles of this sitting anywhere. But I want that level of saturation, and I'm just not getting that. You can see the grains of the paper. I'm not sure that's a good idea either. It's very streaky up in here, so let's grab some more of this rose and see if I can, while it's still wet, get some more color up in there. You know what? We'll just pick it straight up from the pan. One way to do it. Yes, I'm liking how that's working better. Would not normally advise picking it straight up from the pan, but that's what I'm doing today. Because it's giving me the saturation I'm looking for. It's getting a little streaky on me, but yeah, that's probably a me not knowing how to work with watercolors problem. we're going to work with that. It's maybe not great, but yeah, okay. You know, maybe I'll go. I wonder if going side to side will make this any better. Or am I just going to get side to side lines instead? Just going to get side to side lines. But you know what? At least those go with the flow of the hill. So, yeah. That bothers me, but it bothers me less than when they were going up and down. Something is definitely not well in Denmark here, but I'm going to run with it. In fact, I'm going to take the door and go in a circle. Because this should be a round thing. All right, well, it is what it is. More drying time, and we'll get back with it. But I've still got plenty of that rose color in here. So I'm going to go with what's in my pan and hope that it's good enough and try and give it a little mixy here in case that was the issue. We shall see. Now for this next one, again, you don't do this, don't do this, don't do that, but you do everything else. So that's what we're doing with this layer. And again, we've only got two colors on the paper right now. We've got this rose pink color and we've got the yellow, but those are the only two colors that we've used so far. But by the time this whole piece is done, there should be 8 distinct colors on the page. And that was part of my disappointment with the last time I did this, is that the distinctions between the colors were not as prominent in the version that I did as they were in Andrea's piece that she did. And again, it could be a number of things. A, she's really good at this. She's been doing it for a long time. I'm a novice. I don't quite know what I'm doing with watercolors. She's probably got higher quality paints, higher quality brushes, higher quality paper than what I'm working with. And so those are just all things that I find you have to take into account when you're new and using beginner materials, is that your stuff is not going to come out looking like the professionals and their stuff does, because their materials are completely different than what you're working with. And so you have to give yourself a little bit of grace. And I find that it's so easy to go, but they made this perfect, beautiful thing, and I can't get the perfect, beautiful thing, and what's wrong with me? And it's probably not even you. It's probably your materials versus their materials. It doesn't mean that your art's not worth it, or only make art if you can afford expensive materials. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. Because there's been plenty of amazing art that's gone out into the world by people who only had a burnt stick and some parchment, you know? So you have to not let what you don't have stand in the way of working with what you do have. So this is the watercolors I've got, so I'm going to make them work with me. And if that means I have to make these lines go side to side so they don't irritate me, then that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. All right, so there we go. I'm going to hit that with another hair dryer. Also, it's time for a color change up to the purple. So I want to give my brushes another good rinse here so that I can get all that rose color out and move up to the purple color. Now, one problem with adding heat to washi tape is it will make your washi tape go loose on you. And I knew that, so it's all right. It's just going to change my border a little over here. But I do want it to stay stuck to the table here, so let's press that all back down. All right, so now we're going to change to color number 3. We're going to go with this purple. I've rinsed out my brush. I want to get a little bit more water up here in the pan for this purple color, so I have enough of it. Reactivate that purple over there. All right. And again, that purple is dioxazine violet. That's the purple that I have, so that's the purple we're using. Now, another thing, I was talking about why my colors may not have come out quite the way that Andrea's did, is also that I only have one choice of purple. It's the only purple this set came with. And so when I go to mix my purple, I don't have a choice between a bluer purple or a redder purple. I really only have, look, you can use this dioxazine violet or you can just forget it. Now I could mix up a bespoke purple, but I don't want to do that because I'm not going to be able to mix it correctly to have both layers of it turn out to be the same color. Whereas if I do it this way, they should come out to be the same tonal value regardless. And that's kind of what I want to make sure is that I'm, all things being equal here. Now that said, I might have mixed the first one because it was so much lighter than the color I've got now. So either it dried really light or I mixed it different. At any rate, we've got another splotch of water on here. Stop that. Stop getting my painting wet. So now we're going to skip this, skip that, skip this, skip that. But we're going to do from here on up. So it really is a super easy painting exercise to do, because it's just follow a couple of straight lines, a couple of simple rules. Do not like... See, this is doing the same thing that red was doing, where it's just beating up on the surface and not really at the saturation that I want. I'm getting all these paint streaks. Not happy with it. So I think I'm going to do the same thing here that I did with the red. I'm going to go in and pull straight from the pan because I do want this purple to kind of pop as its own value. And I'm not getting that. Like I wasn't getting it with my red either. Now maybe this is too dark. That's certainly feasible. But I want it to actually, be a color. And, you can question the validity of whether I should go straight from the pan or not. But it's what I'm doing now, so here we are. Yeah, not digging the stripes. Well, at least now I've got a distinctive color here. There we go. Leave that, do a little bit more hair drying. Little hard to see where my door went. Maybe that'll clear up once it dries. I'll be able to see my door again. Let's see. All right, now it did get really challenging to see that door. I can almost make out where it is, so I think if I lay this back down, it's approximately right there. let's draw that back in so I can see it. And then I gotta find my mountain line again. I can almost see that as well. It's there, and then I think I went down here. I'm gonna go back up. I don't know what I did originally. That's what we're doing now. Okay, so we've reestablished our line because now we need to go in with that second layer of purple. And we're going to work with just what's right here in the pan. And again, give it a good mixy-mixy in case that was my problem. All right. Oh, I keep forgetting that I need to scoop off the side I'm not painting with and leave it on the side. Oh, right, for this layer, skip that, skip this, skip that, skip this, skip that. And so now we're only doing this hill in the background. What do I think of that? Well, the color is definitely better than the first time I did this. I'm still deeply unsatisfied with it. All right, well, we're going to leave it like that. Going to give it another dry. Now the very last color is blue, and you only do blue up in this very topmost, night sky kind of area. And when Andrea did her example, she did go over that section twice. So depending on what my first layer looks like, I may or may not do a second layer. But first I want to get my brush clean. It's currently really saturated with that purple paint. My goodness. Let's try and get some blue going on here. Got a little bit of water there in the pan. Don't need quite as much paint because I'm painting on a smaller area. And I did say I was going to use the ultramarine. Do I want to use the ultramarine? I might go with phthalo blue just to get a really deep dark sky. My phthalo blue is back here. It's got some yellow in it right now, which is not really helpful. Not sure how that happened, actually. Let's try and pull that yellow out of there before we make our lives more difficult. In fact, the yellow is all over here. Look at that. I got yellow all the way down this pan. Now for right now, we're going to dig the yellow out of the phthalo blue. So I don't want it in there. Paper towel. I will find a paper towel later. Now it can go in the acrylic pan. Alright. So yeah, I have changed my mind. We're going to do the phthalo blue. So I need to activate that phthalo blue a little bit because I didn't activate it when I first started this project. And I think this is a blue change. I don't think I used phthalo in this pan originally. So let's get that going on. I do want to separate that pan from the yellow. It's a little too close for my comfort. Alright. So let's get some of this phthalo blue action going on here. Yeah, see, that's giving me a really rich, deep blue, which might have been part of my problem last time, so there we go. I shouldn't need a ton of it. There's not a lot of space up here to work with. So let's just do this first. Yeah, and you can see where that's a good blue layer now. And again, on this last layer, you want to just do this top part of the sky here. And give that a quick dry. Alright, yeah, I am going to do one more layer of that blue. Mainly so that I don't have light spots like this one here and that one there. I mostly just want to paint over those sections. In fact, I might only just paint over those sections. Don't want any hard lines here, so let's see if that fixes it. If it doesn't, well, it doesn't. Alright, and that should be it for the paint. Should not need or want to put any other paint on here. And then the rest is all drawing by hand. So let me clean up here. I'm going to give this a little bit of a dry, and then we'll come in and we'll start doing the drawing piece. Alright, so there's our layer of base paint. And now the rest is just filling in details with pencils. So because I decided that these were going to be hobbit houses, we're going to do just a couple of little, hedgy things down here. And I could add a lot of detail to these, but that's not what I'm trying to do today. So I do want to put a little ring around here. Now I'm freehanding this. If you're not a freehand person, you could stencil it. I would have to own more stencils than I do, so freehand it is. And then hobbit doors often have their handles right in the middle, so we'll put a handle right here in the middle of this one. I want a little bit of wood grain around here to suggest that this is a wood grain frame. I don't know why I prefer to draw hobbit holes over drawing normal people houses, because, you know, we all know what a normal house looks like, but most of us have not been to Hobbiton, so... And then I'm going to put some lumber pieces in here, so this looks more wooden door-like. I know I just drew all of those in brown, but I'm going to redraw them in green, because I think this hobbit has a green door. So we'll change those to green. Continue over here in green. Because why not? And then again, we'll do some more sort of wood grainy looking things here. So it doesn't have a ton of detail, but, you know, enough to know that it's a door made of wood. Now, if you were just doing houses, you would be putting like windows and, you know, and maybe I will add a window. I don't know. Right now we're just doing doors. But I could go over here and I could absolutely put a window and a window box with some flowers. I would have to want to put that kind of time in it, and tonight that's not where my brains are at. So now this one's partially hidden, but I think this one's going to have a stone border. So again, I'm going to sketch that border in, but I'm going to make it a little wider so that I can draw some rocks in here. And so now we'll just do some rocks. Some nice rounded off rocks. Maybe this hobbit's a stonemason. What do I know? This is not my first time drawing hobbit houses. I was in part of an ATC swap at one point, and it was articulated ATCs. And so I had a little hedge that folded up, and when you unfolded the hedge, there was a hobbit door overlooking a koi pond. And so I thought it was cute. I don't know if anyone who received it thought it was cute, but a couple extra rocks there. Let's put this hobbit door handle over here. Maybe this is an extra wide hobbit who wants to be able to come in and out of his door and not have to walk sideways. So we'll put a couple of fancy hinges over here. And that way you know kind of how the door works. Fancy hinge right there. And I'll put another fancy hinge down here. Alright, so there's that one. Probably going to fill in some bits of mortar here. Let's give it a little bit more character. Let's really round these off and brown them up a little. And while I'm doing this, I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to decorate that door up there. Because one of the problems I'm having is it's so dark up in that purple space. I'm not sure this brown pencil is really going to be my friend. So I'm thinking I may switch over to a white or a silver pen and maybe put some Elvish on that door. Not that I know how to write Elvish, but I can put some fancy cursive-y looking thing on there and make it look a little more Hobbit-like in that way. I kind of like how this one already has that circular pattern that I painted into it. I don't like how his hillside doesn't have that, but I think if I just tap a couple of dots on here and let the direction of the painting speak for itself, it may look rock-like enough to just leave it be. But yeah, I am intentionally putting specks in there. So yeah, for this door, I am going to go with a lighter pen just so that we can actually see what's going on. I don't want to do silver, though. I don't want to do white either. And I don't have a gray that I'm aware. I might have a gray pen. Let me see if I have a gray pen. Yeah, I do have a gray pen. Because I think white's going to be too bright. Silver's going to be too magic. If you read the Tolkien books, the silver is a very active kind of magic-y sort of thing. So let's see how this gray works out. Yeah, it might read too dark on here too. Yeah, that's actually reading as black on that blue. So that's not going to work. Let's revert back to white. Or silver. I'm going to go with silver. Let's see how the silver does. Yeah, it's a little vivid, but it's okay. I will just choose to be okay with it. And then here we want to do all kinds of swoopy, viney-like things. It's a very elven-y sort of way to look at stuff. All right. And now, let's see, a sort of elvish door hook. I think we'll just go with something fairly simple here. Just that and that and that. Do I want to do... Yeah, I do think I want to do something vine-like on here. And then we'll do one over here as well. And there we go. So those are our little hobbit doors. And then we're going to take white. We'll go up in the night sky here. Let's get... I want to do just the thinnest sliver of a moon here. And then we'll put a couple of stars here. And there we go. So I would say, let's find my original sketch here. The color saturation much better on this piece. You can see the difference between the light yellow and the dark yellow. Up here we've got this peachy color and this more red color, although I think it was supposed to be orange, but it's red now. And then up here in the purple, I could use to have done differently in the purple. Here, at least, you could barely even tell it was purple. The saturation difference between this part of the purple and this part of the purple, however, is very hard to distinguish. So I wish I had done differently with the purple, but the blue actually came out nice and deep on this one. Again, I will link to Andrea Nelson's tutorial so that you can see what this looks like when you do it with normal houses and when you do it with the quality of paints and papers and brushes that she's working with and some actual talent. But I think my Hobbit little hillside here came out really nice. I'm much happier with this than I was with my test one. I did an Elvish door here too. But I also did those hinges. I've done those before. And then my wood door, I always do a wood Hobbit door. So maybe I have styles. We'll see. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me so much on recreating this piece. There will be more videos over the weekend. I should have more time to film, I think. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. Oh, tape removal. One moment, please. I just forgot that. I don't usually tape my stuff down. So let's show you with the really clean border. Let's hope the borders are really clean. Ah, the paper. I'm sorry, everybody does these clean border reveals. I forgot all about it. I don't want to leave you hanging going, why didn't you pull the tape? So let's pull the tape. Make it look all purty and professional-like here. I think I had some bleed through on the top. The bottom edge came out nice. Look at that. Yeah, I knew I had a little bleed up on the top. That's okay. Little white paint, I can make that go away. Fill that in with a little more red, no one will ever know. So there you go. That's it. Clean up on aisle 5 here. Nope. Oh well, I'll go over it with gouache or something. We'll make it pretty again. But at any rate, thank you guys for joining me. We'll see you next time. Bye.